Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press, right here on NACTV. I'm Eoin Devereux, news sports reporter with the Banner Press, welcoming you, as always, to the show. Appreciate you taking a little bit of your time each and every week and spending it right here with us. I'm joined this week by a hopefully rested, relaxed Casper Wehrhahn. Casper, good to have you back.
Good to be here, and yeah, it's good to be back after being on holidays. Perhaps feels a little bit weird, Eoin. It's very nice to go and just have a break and recuperate. And I have to say that first week or so, it felt like a month in the best of ways. I really needed the rest, but it's good to be back here and back on the show.
Oh yeah, and you got back into the swing of things quite quickly, though. I mean, the rest I think did you good. Got right back into it with a couple stories we're going to be covering very shortly right here on the show. But before we do that, we're going to hit, obviously, with the front page. Very significant event that occurred recently here in Neepawa, and of course throughout all of Canada, the Remembrance Day ceremonies. For Neepawa, they did have a little touch of special extra significance this year because they've been held for the first time in the last couple years at the Yellowhead Hall. Due to restrictions being in place related to the COVID-19 pandemic, last couple years, they haven't had to have been able to have as large a ceremony as perhaps they would have wanted to, either because of restrictions, complete restrictions for indoor events, or, for example, last year it was held outdoors at the Cenotaph, just over by the County Court building. I remember that one very much so because there was the first major blizzard of the winter that came rolling in on that day, so standing around trying to get pictures as the snow slowly but surely sort of gathered up over our heads almost, it felt like. But it was great to be able to be back at the Yellowhead Hall this year. And there was a good crowd there. It was a solid crowd. Maybe not the largest they've ever had, but still a good number. Now, I don't know whether that was because of sort of people being skittish back getting together in large groups. If that's the way they feel, that's understandable. I can understand that. Or whether it was just a case of just other things. And hopefully it wasn't that reason. Because when it comes to an event like Remembrance Day, I think we all, every generation that passes forward needs to remember this. It gets more and more difficult to remember. We've talked about on this show a couple weeks ago about the special section that Casper themselves had put together, and tremendous job with it, telling the stories of people that are no longer, many of them are no longer here to be able to tell those stories. Some of them are, but they are getting fewer and far between. So we have to keep those types of stories alive. We have to keep that type of memory alive, as difficult as it can be. So there were young people there, there were families there. It was wonderful to see that type of representation, and not just representation from our new arrivals as well, new families coming over from Philippines, taking part in this as well, understanding the significance behind it. So I'm very appreciative of that. Now, we have the picture on the front page, but we have additional pictures inside as well, which you can find on page 9. Several that I was able to get, several notable ones that I thought personally I liked them for one aspect or another. They meant something, they attracted something from me, so I hope that they'll inspire you in some way, shape, or form. And take a moment to read some of the information as well. I had a chance to speak with the president for the local Legion branch, Kevin Paramore. He talked to me about the significance of being able to hold the event once again at the Yellowhead and to have people together once again to be a part of it. So I do hope you take a few minutes on that. Casper, I don't recall, and refresh my memory, have you ever, since you've started here, covered any of these types of events?
Here and there, yes, I have. Usually just the one in Neepawa. I know in the past we've had either yourself or John or whoever else has been in the area go to others outside of the town here. But yeah, I've covered a couple, and it's always nice to see the turnout to these things. In particular for this one, not necessarily to do with the crowd, but it was nice to see, and you'll see it once you take a look at the page for yourself, but they had on display the wooden cross that was donated to them a previous year and had actually been featured, I think, either in a previous Remembrance Day section or just a bit before. It's beautifully done, and it has a place somewhere in the Legion right now, but it hasn't been able to be used yet, as far as I know, for anything up until, well, just recently for Remembrance Day. So it's awesome that they were able to have that put out, because it's a really beautiful piece.
First time, yes, this year actually, that they were able to sort of officially use it in these types of circumstances. Wonderful piece. Was donated anonymously as well. I tried to talk to a bunch of people, see if I could get that name or something like that, and they all said no, unfortunately it's anonymous. It's like, but it was a wonderful piece as well, all carved from just one piece of wood there, and a tremendous job. You can see the back of it on the front page, and on page 9 you can see it's front and center on there, along with some of the other items. Wonderfully done. Tremendous bit of artistry to be able to put something like that together, which segues quite nicely into another little bit of artistry that we're able to celebrate with you. And this is your story, Casper, because as we, in Canada, as we shift into Remembrance Day and then get past Remembrance Day, then we start thinking about Christmas, obviously. And this one has that holiday feel to it.
It certainly does, yeah. As we progress further throughout the month of November, snow starts to fall even more. In fact, we had a little bit just today while filming. But yeah, it's coming around the corner. December's almost here. And with that, of course, brings in the jolly season, which also means kids will be participating in the annual tradition of sending letters to Santa Claus. So the Neepawa Post Office is well prepared and should have their Santa box out for any of such letters to be dropped into to be sent to the North Pole.
Oh, that is great. And they've got a very special sort of piece that's been put together to sort of, you know, obviously sort of catch your eye, though, as well.
Yeah, they do. It's not the first year for this to appear. That would have actually been last year. But last year, the men's shed here from Neepawa made the post office a special Santa box there, which you can see on page 2. Very bright red colors. It's got a scroll saw art of Santa Claus and a little symbol for the North Pole there. It's got the letters on there. And Mail for Santa on the top. It's very wonderful work of art, and it's awesome to see the men's shed getting involved in all sorts of things around the community.
That's right. I mean, very nice that they were able to do something like that last year, and they continue to work tirelessly as well, which segues very nicely into a story you were able to cover this week as well, with in connection to Cavalry Chapel, if I remember right, correct?
Yes, that is indeed correct. Yeah, it seems like they just kind of have a bunch of projects all the time. They're never short of anything, that's for certain, which is good because of the nature of the group there. But talking about the project itself, it's something that has been in the works for a while, actually since summer of this year. And it was to build a new cross for the Cavalry Chapel here, because they've been needing one for a while. And the men's shed at the time, before some renovations became necessary for the chapel, and they unfortunately haven't been able to happen quite yet, they asked the pastor there if there was anything that they could do, since they were using the space. And, well, it's a community group, and they're community funded, so they make community projects, and the chapel is part of the community. So what ended up happening here was brainstorming got going, and they ended up making a brand new cross for the chapel. A very fascinating process. They got some old barn boards from an 80-year-old barn that Brad Mummery took apart himself, some poplar that was harvested from the Clan William, I think, area, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. And the reason it took so long, actually, Eoin, is they had trouble finding the correct lights to do the backlighting. Yeah, they were trying to find locally and just couldn't find, tried to find online. All the kits were just not right. So eventually, somewhat recently, they were finally able to find the correct lighting there and get it delivered just this past Friday, I think.
That's nice. And again, you can see that. Casper describes it for you here, but if you want to see it for yourself, there's a great picture. I thought it was a tremendous picture of the individuals working and the cross itself that you can find on page 10 of this week's edition of the Banner and Press, I should say. And it really does, that little extra care to sort of find the right lighting really does pay off, I thought, personally. It just pops right off the page.
It really does, and it was mentioned in the article there when I was talking with both Brad and Colin McNerney, who is also in the group. That was just sort of a happy accident with how things played out with the cross mounted up there, because for the faith that the Calvary Chapel has, 3 crosses is a pretty big symbol. And with the shadow that's cast by the cross, you get all 3 of those in there. So you have the poplar cross and the barn backboard and then the shadow that's cast. So it was a very happy accident for them that happened.
That's great. And it's wonderful to see the men's shed being able to do that. We've talked many a time over the last few years about the men's shed, what they are all about, and what they try and bring to the community, and also what they try and do to help with their membership as well. Because this is geared towards individuals who maybe downsized, maybe don't have the big garage or shed anymore where they're able to do their work. So this helps them sort of continue to keep busy, and it also adds that little bit of camaraderie for those that maybe don't have it like they did when they were younger.
Exactly, yeah. It's got a very big emphasis on mental health, men's mental health in particular. Just because, different societal pressures, gender-based things that, give men a different mindset typically that you can't talk about things. So they're often a lot more closed off when they're just sitting down face-to-face with someone and are more open to talking to people about things if they're working on a project together. So that's really the focus of the men's shed here, and it's great to see that it's got support from the community.
That is great, and that is very much true. I mean, when it comes to every gender, every nationality, every individual has their own figurative crosses that they have to bear, and again, like, men do have that different thing because they're taught at an early age, just walk it off, put some dirt on it. So for them, those individuals to sort of see that they need some sort of interaction like that, that is a very progressive, positive thing. That's something that even 20 years ago, quite honestly, was frowned upon for the average man. I'll take a personal story as well. Recently, I went and visited a very good friend of mine. I've known him for 32 years, since we were in high school together. Myself, my other friend I've known for 32, 33 years as well. We went and visited my friend in Winnipeg. He just had his second heart attack in the fall. Very down, very depressed. But he didn't interact. He didn't share that with us until we were there with him. That's because, again, he was part of my generation, obviously. That generation is like, walk it off. Just don't even talk about it. Just push it down. It's like, you need things like that because sooner or later, not even just men, but any individual, sooner or later, if they don't have that interaction, that way to talk about it, they're just going to pop in one way or another. And that's not healthy for anyone. So I'm very glad to see that the men's shed is here, that it's helping in that way. And I hope that it does continue on for years to come because they're doing good within the club and they're doing good within the community. Love to be able to share those types of stories with you each and every week right here on the Story Behind the Stories and in the pages of the Neepawa Banner and Press. All right, let's get a little lighter though right now. Let's shift gears to something that is an annual tradition as well, much like the Remembrance Day ceremonies here in Neepawa is the Farm and Leisure Lotto that is put on each and every year in regard to the Neepawa District Medical Committee and the Beautiful Plains Medical Clinic. This is the huge fundraiser each and every year for that organization and for that building. And it's really taken on a great tradition. There's so many, I think it's about 15 years in right now.
I think so.
Yeah. So, and it's unbelievable the amount of money they have raised. It's around, including this year, it's around 1.5 million they've raised for upgrades to the clinic, to the facilities, getting practitioners in there, doctors, nurses, support staff like that. This lottery is huge. If it weren't for the lottery, the clinic would not, quite honestly, the clinic would not be. Let's not mix words here. It would not be in any way, shape, or form. And hopefully we don't take that for granted. And considering the support that the lottery had this year, I don't think we are taking it for granted. They had some great numbers. They were pretty much on par with what they normally see. Last year's numbers were record-setting. It was about a net profit of around $165,000 last year. That's the biggest they had ever seen in the entire 15 years that they've run it. This year, it's not as much. It's around, unofficially, keep that in mind, this is unofficial right now, in and around $120,000. Now, don't be disappointed by that number, though, because that is still on par with what we've seen in previous years, with the exception of last year. This is where they usually are, which is a great thing, considering the year we have had, not just here in Neepawa, but all across Canada. Inflation this year has gone out of control. So a lot of businesses, a lot of people, and a lot of families are worried about their income. So they might not have that extra disposable income that they would usually put about towards things like the lottery. Or, you know, to use an example we'll be talking about in the near future as well, the Neepawa Titans cash draw coming up as well. So maybe they're not spending the same way they would normally. But they stepped up for the lottery this year, on pace, on par with what we've seen in previous years, and is wonderful. And I had an opportunity to speak with spokesperson Mary Ellen Clark. Always love to be able to chat with her about something like this, because she is just so passionate about it and sees the value in it. And that type of passion, Casper, it really is. It's infectious. In the good way. It's the positive infection, all right? And she says those people involved, she cites the volunteers, a couple individuals in here, about stepping up, going above and beyond to make this thing happen. And she also cites the fact that it's not just a Neepawa sort of commitment. Because they do, and I don't cite it in the story, but she did say to me, because of the commitments that she has with the radio stations, they do live call-ins from Brandon and Dauphin, and those are big things. She cited very specifically the Parkland area, which is covered by Dauphin, the Dauphin radio station, as being a great supporter consistently. So that's really nice to be able to hear that. Even though the people of Dauphin and the Dauphin area can't partake in the clinic, they have their own sort of medical sort of area, but they still see value of it for the entire Westman region, and they want to support it. I mean, the fact that they could almost win $100,000, that probably helps as well, Casper, I'd imagine.
Oh yeah.
That type of number makes me almost, makes me want to sign a check and send it to them. But it was great, $100,000, and the 50-50 was about on par as well. It was about $45,000. Let me check here. Yeah, $49,945 this year. Unbelievable amount of money. And we've got the winners in there. Congratulations to Norman Long of Dauphin, of the Parkland region, for winning the big one, the $100,000. And the Morez family, 4 individuals who sort of pooled the money together out of Ethelbert, won the 50-50, almost $50,000. When you're at that amount, I'd almost say maybe the committee should kick in the extra $55 just to make it
even.
Make it an even 50. Come on, guys, you can afford it. Come on. But that is fantastic to be able to see that type of support once again, especially in a time of uncertainty when it comes to everyone's wallet, everyone's purse, everyone's satchel, everyone's bag of gold, whatever, however you may take your money about, which unfortunately segues into the next story we're going to be talking about. Because as we said, maybe some people are a little gun shy about spending that extra money. But just think how places like the Salvation Army Food Bank have to deal with it. An opportunity to speak with Leah Anderson, who is the new community family services worker there. Been there for about 7-8 months, around the start of the year. And she talked about how this has been a challenging year, even more challenging than normal, for a multitude of reasons at the food bank. One, of course, as we cited, inflation. Everything is more expensive now than it was 9-10 months ago, or most definitely this time last year. I'm noticing it. Casper, I'm sure you're noticing it as well.
Oh, absolutely, and I know my parents are as well. I actually just told the story in the office a couple days ago, I think. My parents, because we had to go to Brandon anyway, my mom made a point of having a stop near the Walmart so that she could go in and get some bath products, you know, shampoo, conditioner, all that sort of stuff, because it's just so expensive here. So she was trying to find wherever she could a lower price to make it more affordable.
Exactly, and actually that reminds me of something. Again, when my buddy and myself visited my other friend in Winnipeg, we went grocery shopping, grabbed a bunch of stuff for him there for his home, and I cited, it was like, because a couple days earlier, I'd bought some sliced chicken from a local grocery store, you know, and it was about $5 something for the packet. And then I went to, I forget whether it was a Sobeys or a Save On Foods. There was a green sign.
Yeah.
The sign was green in Winnipeg, and it was like $1.50 more in Winnipeg for this exact same product that I had bought it for here in Neepawa. It was like, I said to him, oh my God, how is it more expensive here? You'd figure you have more options. It would be less expensive here. And he said, well, no, that's the way it is. Strange thing. I came back, and it was the Tuesday. I went shopping, and I went looking just out of curiosity. The price here had gone up. It was just a case of it hadn't reached us yet, so there you have it.
Yeah.
Now imagine if we have to deal with that with buying just for ourselves or just for a smaller family. Just imagine what it's like having to do that for multiple families, dozens upon dozens upon dozens of families. That's the issue that the Salvation Army Food Bank has to run into. Inflation means the dollars that they receive through the thrift store or through your generous donations don't go as far as they did this time last year. Combine that with the fact that as people, donations, you know, people would donate certain times a year, they donate, but maybe they're not doing it to the same degree that they would have a couple years ago because they're worried themselves about keeping their cupboards full, about keeping their fridge full. So that just adds to the pressure and concern that's happening down at the Salvation Army. And as well, if that weren't enough, if inflation weren't enough, if concerns causing a drop in donations weren't enough, then there's usage. I talked to Leah about this. She said the usage this year in Neepawa is more, and it's consistent. During certain times of the year in previous years, there have been upticks at certain times of the year of usage, and that's understandable. There's stresses, people maybe not working consistently like they normally do, but she's noticed this year, and she's talked with Amanda Nightingale about it as well, who has a history, understanding of the history there. There is so much more people using it here in Neepawa consistently each and every month now. You don't think about that because you're in a small town, maybe. You don't think about that because the concept of homelessness or poverty, you know, you think it doesn't really happen here. I'm sure it happens in the city, but it doesn't happen in a small town. Mm-hmm. It does. It does even with people working full-time jobs. Consider that. Think about that. Even if you are working a full-time job, a full 40 a week, maybe that's not enough. And that's a snowball rolling downhill that's got to be looked after. So hopefully you'll read that story. I definitely hope that you will take the time to read that story and think about supporting them in any way, shape, or form. And don't look at it as a big thing, even one thing. Like I talked to Leah about this, and she said one thing, toiletries, for example, shampoo, Tide Pods, laundry detergent, toilet paper, these little things, because we always think non-perishable food items, we always think dried foods or canned foods, but those are things as well, that even if you can give one or just one little thing, that'd make a big difference. So I implore you, please, as we head into the holiday season, do what you can to help out. Even if you think it's not enough, even one thing makes a difference, because maybe you do something, and somebody else does something, and somebody else does something, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then 12, and then 20. It all adds up. So hopefully you will consider that this holiday season. All right, now I'm going to get off my soapbox really quickly here. And just one thing I want to shout out to an individual football coach for the NACI Tigers, Chidi Small. It's third year, if I remember correctly. He has been the head coach for the football team, and all the hard work he's been putting in the last couple years is getting recognized. He has been named the Rural Manitoba Football League, Coach of the Year. First time he's received this recognition. The Tigers this year finished with a 4-3 record. Now that might not sound impressive, but you got to consider something. If you haven't been out to the games and you haven't seen it with your own eyes, this is a young team. This is an inexperienced team. Half the team are kids who hadn't really played organized football at the start of the year. Coach Small and his assistant coaches as well, they're listed in this story as well, so give them their props as well. They molded this team. They turned them into a contender, and they were able to win the consolation championship for the Rural Manitoba Football League, the Murray Black Cup, in a year that they were just hoping to be competitive. So congratulations to Coach Small, and congratulations to the NACI Tigers on this accomplishment. That is a big deal. They came in without many expectations, and they exceeded those expectations and then some. So congratulations to them. There's so much more, honestly, we could talk to you about in this week's edition of the Banner and Press. There's our Shop Hometown information that you can find on the back page. That event is going to be occurring. You're going to be able to see that in a lot of different businesses throughout Neepawa over the next couple weeks. There's Casper's weekly Looking Back section, very popular section that we always appreciate you taking some time on. Of course, the Neepawa Titans played, our update on the Neepawa Farmers senior team. There's so much. If you're interested in something, I'm sure you will find it in the pages. And if you have any story suggestions for us, give us a call at 476-3401 or contact us via email at news@neepawabanner.com. So, Casper, once again, glad to have you back in the office. Take some of the weight off my shoulders. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me here, and glad to be back in the office.
Oh, yeah. And thank you, as always, for taking a little bit of your time, spending it right here with us. We appreciate you, and we appreciate your support of the Neepawa Banner and Press and of NACTV. We hope that you will continue to do so on these multiple platforms for years to come. So once again, for Casper, I am Eoin. Thank you, as always, for taking a little bit of time and spending it right here with us on the story behind the stories. Have yourself a good week.